It's starting. So we're live here with our afternoon fireside chat, and we have Kate Baker and Troy Cockram on the line. So I'll just do the introduce who you are, what you do, how long you've been flipping, what do you flip, etc. Kate.
Yes, sir.
You're up.
All right, so I'm Kate Baker, 9th and 12th grade English teacher from New Jersey. I've been flipping officially for 4 years now, but I kind of found that I've always been flipped without really knowing what I was doing. So it's been pretty cool to have validation and confirmation of what I do with my students. So, and I blog at Baker's BYOD, and I'm on Twitter, as you can see my handle there. And I've been teaching 16 years and English, and I also coach swimming as well. So.
Cool. And Troy.
Let's see. I'm Troy Cockram. I currently am. My title is Director of Innovative Teaching. Very similar to an instructional coach, but kind of make up the job description as I go along. I've flipped my English class for 4.5 years prior to this year stepping out of the classroom. So now I just help teachers be more innovative, which includes helping them flip. What else? I just started my doctoral degree at Indiana University, and finding quite a bit of people asking about, in just my very first class, asking a lot of questions about flipped classroom, and all the experts we bring in from other universities. When they're asked about what the trends are, they always say flipped classroom and flipped learning. So, I've written, let's see, a book called Flipping Your English Class to Reach All Learners. So, and what else? I think that's it.
Oh, we're both in the Flipping 2.0 book, mentioned books.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but my chapter's on Google Apps in a flipped classroom, and the book was written, what, 2 years ago? So I'm sure none of it is even current anymore. So.
Well, that's the way books work.
Yeah.
I actually have to buy your book again, Troy, so I can read it, because I gave my copy away when I went to Korea. Oh, wow. So I'm Ken Bauer. I've been teaching for 20 years now, coming up on August, which is kind of weird. I ran into some of my first students at an event just Saturday, which kind of blew my mind. Been doing flipping for about 2.5 years, and undergraduate computer science mostly. So it's kind of nice for me, even though I'm running this course, I'm learning tons. I don't know what you guys have seen about the course. It's a connected course. The idea is that people have to create their own blogs, their own content on their own sites, and then I do a syndication of all that onto our main class blog. It's what I'm doing this semester with my students, and doing it for this course. And we have about 90, possibly over 100 people registered for the course now. Most of them from our Tec de Monterrey campuses. There's 32 campuses across the country. And then there's about 20 people registered that are not from our system, including some elementary school people, some people in technical training, all over the map. So I'm looking forward to learning how they do stuff. And I love learning from you guys, because I went to your talk at FlipCon. I wanted to take another English class.
Yay! We couldn't have done that session without you.
Yeah.
It was great. So I'm just going to watch and see if any questions come in. I don't know if anything will come in, or Andrew's playing hooky from his class and he'll ask us questions. But basically the idea today is this is week 0 for our course, and a lot of these faculty have not blogged at all. They don't really use Twitter. They don't get what Twitter's about, and maybe haven't made any videos at all. And every one of their assignments, they have to make a blog post, make a short video about their reflection. This week it's just what they think about flipped classroom, with the idea that 8 weeks later, when we finish up the course, they'll make another video reflecting on what they've learned over these 8 weeks. Then the following 4 weeks after this one is going through the 4 pillars of the flipped classroom. So flexible environment, and it's so on and so on. And then the last 2 weeks after that is prepare their first flipped class. and then get feedback from the community of this course on what that's about. So we'll go through those sessions. But this one's really about why is blogging important? Well, maybe we start with that one and see if any other questions come in. So why is blogging important, you guys? Kate?
Blogging for me is just so nice to sit down and have a nice archive and documentation of what I've been doing, ideas I've had, lessons I've taught with my students. You know, it's public, but you know, that doesn't bother me because then I look at it as a way to start a conversation with others. If they read a post and they go, oh, me too, and then, you know, it can generate a good conversation, or just a way of helping someone, you know, do something better, like avoid mistakes, because here it is, I've, you know, shared, you know, I have a post on like how to tips and tricks for Moto quizzes. So anyone who's using Emoto quizzes can read the post and say, oh, hey, that would be really useful. So it's a two-way street for me. It's good reflective practice for me, but then it's also a way to pay it forward to others and help other educators do what we do. Exactly. Troy, what do you say?
Well, I blog for a few different reasons. And for different reasons, even based, you know, on where I am in my career. So currently, I blog as Kate reflected, we all blog to reflect, but I blog also to share what my staff is doing, because I want to encourage them to be more transparent and more public with what they're doing. And so when we develop a project together or something, I blog about it, just to one, kind of show them the process of being more public with what they do. So I do that. I blog for myself to just reflect, but you know, you could write your own blog in a Google Doc and never share it with anybody. But the fact that I know that it is public, it forces me to treat it as I want what's public to be accurate and well done. So it forces me to maybe look a little bit deeper at something than I would had I known no one else was going to read it. And then when I first started flipping my class, my blog was very helpful in identifying other people who were flipping and experiencing the same things as I was. And when you blog about a tough day that you had and John Bergman responds, you realize you're not alone, that there's other people out there. And then finally, one thing that I found for blogging was, you know, my school wanted me to greet every student at the door, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but then I found if I'm standing at the door greeting every student, the students who are in the classroom were doing nothing until I came in and said, start something. So I just created a blog every day that said, here's what you could be working on. Here are your due dates for these things. Here are some videos that you could be watching. And the students knew, instead of sitting around and talking and waiting for me to cue them to start class, they just knew, open up the blog and get going. And it just... It's only a few more minutes, but it was a few more minutes that made them much more productive. So that was another reason I blogged. And then I had a running tally of everything that I did that year. And if my principal said, "What'd you do last week?" I could say, "Here's my blog."
Whoa! Oh. I lost her. Here's my blog. Now I'll.
No. You know what, though? I like what he brings up, though, about, you know, writing for an authentic audience. And, you know, where he said about how he works harder, you know, to put out a better post. Like, yeah, you're writing to put it out on public. So,
right.
You know, so often with teaching English, like, I don't have time to write because I'm always checking out my students' writing. So blogging gives me that chance to, for me to... I remember
you have the blog post about the fact that you're writing that you can't write.
Yeah, you know, but at least you're still right.
It was good.
Yeah,
Try.
And then
try.
what he says about the blog post for his students, what you could be doing. Well, there it is. There's another example of purposeful blogging. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the
Mm-hmm.
key thing, I think, is if you think about it, goes back to just basic writing stuff you've learned is task, audience, purpose, that every English teacher will beat you over the head with.
Right, and realizing that the audience very often is just you, and if other people rate it and other people get something from it, and if other people actually say, hey, I saw your post, thanks, that's just a bonus.
And I guess I should have mentioned I also host the Flip Learning Network podcast, and I kind of consider that a blog as well.
Right.
It is whatever we're interested in. We just research and talk about it, or find somebody to talk about it with. And even if there's nobody listening, we at least learn something in the process. So it's.
Somebody may not be listening right then and there, but you have that recording that you can go back to later. And I think that's the key piece of
it's what I listen to in the car.
You're putting it out there, so then it's always going to serve someone at some point, even if it's no audience members currently. There could potentially be audience members later.
Right. Yeah, I've listened to every one, Troy, and I even listened to number 100 where there was a special message at the end I was supposed to tweet, but I don't think I ever did. But I did mention it last night because we were talking about one of the questions. Actually, I'll just bring up the question, even though there's none coming in right now. I can just repeat last night's question. This is the beauty. Guillermo Perez in our course asked in Spanish, but I'll translate, about if maybe you know more because you're in elementary classrooms. Audrey didn't have the answer because she does online. Is now that we're flipping and we're doing the direct content outside and we're doing activities inside the classroom, what about the using different spaces as opposed to just the classroom space for our activities with our groups? What experience do you have with that? Field trips or just getting out of the room?
Well, I mean,
that was related to your podcast, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, we just did that particular podcast, but even just freeing yourself up to not be in the front of the room, all of a sudden opens you up to what you could be doing, and that could be experiencing. I did improv quite a bit in my classroom. I would have never had the time to do it had I not flipped, but then my previous school had an outdoor stage, and I could just say, hey, we've got 15 minutes. Let's go shoot outside to our stage because it's a nice day and do some improv. And had I been lecturing that whole time, we would have never found time to do something like that. So it frees you up to realize those kind of opportunities are there.
Yeah, I like blogging also for, as a goal for students. So it's not just about me and, being reflective in my own practice, but to use a blog to publish student work. So, that they're not just writing for a grade here, I'm going to turn my project in and grade it for me. So the flip class has enabled that kind of mentality of, okay, not just working for a grade, but to do more for, again, that authentic audience by putting it out there. In terms of, like, community spaces, like, in addition to blogging, like, I'll get my obligatory Edmodo comment in. That online classroom space is where we're constantly posting and sharing and connecting. It's not necessarily a formal blog post you put out or an informal blog post. It could just be a quick note to students or, hey, here's my Voki, kind of thing. But that kind of learning, I know they don't call it, Edmodo doesn't call it a learning management system, but that social learning space I found is so vital. Like, just having that arena to be in together is important.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do a lot with my students this semester is just create more of a social atmosphere that they're helping each other and putting stuff out in the open where they're not handing their homework just to me, they're handing it to their classmates, and now this semester the entire internet, everything's visible, is changing the dynamics of how things happen in the classroom. So that's working well for me. And so I brought that up last night because the question came up, and so you could listen to Flip Learning Podcast number 115 where they talk about classroom spaces, and it was actually was a good. I really like that edition of the podcast, so they might want to check that out with Troy and Joan Brown as well on the podcast. So there was another question here from yesterday that came out was having difficulty finding the time to blog. I know it's very valuable. Any suggestions? The classic. Right.
Yeah. Well, Flip class has had a lot of fun the past. I wasn't there this past Monday night, but 2
3
weeks.
or 4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been the flash blog. Like, okay, so we've all dedicated this hour block to doing a Flip class chat on Twitter. Well, now take 20 minutes on that block and go do a blog post. So it's not like you've already dedicated that hour, so it's not like you're tacking another 20 minutes on top, which is nice. I was really successful blogging like Saturday mornings. I'd get up, we'd have the coffee pot made, and the kids maybe watching cartoons or something, and I could throw headphones on and bang out a post real quick Saturday mornings. That's helpful. The other thing, if you know you can't get time to blog the post out, at least keep a running list of different topics that you want to write about.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times I'm like, ooh, I'll write about this. I'll remember that because it's a really good idea. And then when I find the time to sit down, I go, oh.
Nothing to write about.
I don't remember what I thought. So I have a running list of drafts and just, maybe it's just a title or just a quick one-liner that when I do find that dedicated time, say on lunch or late night, if I get struck with the inspiration, I'll be able to have something to write about.
I posed this question one time to a group. I can't remember who it was, but it was, if we feel that blogging is so important, why do we struggle to find time to actually do it?
Right.
And I'm the same way. I have several blog posts in draft that I just haven't had time to finish.
Yeah.
Or like Kate said, I have a list of things that I use. I've been using Google Keep quite a bit lately. I love Google Keep, but I'll just put notes in there and have like a small outline, and then I'm a slow starter in the mornings, so I usually spend the first hour of my day either reading blog posts or writing, so that I can not have to leave my office and do anything. So I just kind of set aside some time to do it, but I've got a few that are in the works that I just haven't found the time to publish, and I'll get around to them, maybe not. But just the process of knowing what I want to blog about and thinking about it is part of the process. So.
It's funny because when we talked about it last night, one thing to mention is that almost all the blogging software you have has the ability to create a draft and then save it for later. So sometimes, and even I have like WordPress app on my Android, and I can just do a quick, here's the topic, and then hit save as draft, and then when I get to the computer I can work on it later. But I was looking through my draft folder right now. I have 9, and one of them is called Why Blog, which is kind of funny. But maybe I should get to that list one of these days. So that was an interesting point we brought up last night. Then there was another question. Oh, one of the other questions Guillermo brought up, and I'm going to just check if there's anything new. No, if there's anything new. Should you just flip like an activity? Should you flip the whole darn semester or year, or how should you get started?
I say start small. Start with one lesson. Don't go crazy and be like, I'm going to flip my whole year. No, just take it in small chunks. I think if you do bite-sized chunks and then gradually increase the length of time to flip, then you can eventually get to, flipping the whole thing. But no, I don't recommend take one thing that you know really well and flip that.
I didn't take Kate's advice.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. How many people do we know who jumped all in and got through it just fine? And I jumped all in as well. Even though I recommend, for some people it's good to start small and just do a small unit. One thing that concerns me is teachers who might alternate between a flipped unit and a non-flipped unit. The students don't get any consistency, and it's
Mhm.
going to take you longer to get to a point where you are able to flip everything if you're going too slowly.
Right.
Um, so I would say maybe flip one class. If you teach all of the
Okay.
same class, if you teach 5 units of the same English class, well then you flip one
Piece of
class, you
cake.
flip them all. But if you've got 2 units of one class and 3 units of another class or whatever, flip one class and get the hang of it, work out the kinks with that class, and then you can transition it to your other classes as you get better and get quicker with it. Because it gets so much. Well, first you make fewer videos as you get better at it. You realize you don't need to make as many videos, and then you also get better at making your videos much quicker. So, I mean I don't know. The last 2 years I was flipping was I want to say it was pretty darn easy because I was very efficient at what I did. So
Hmm.
That's the key thing, though, is if you understand what you're doing and where you're going, that's definitely gonna. The more experience you get, the better you'll be at it. I was finding this year I was having trouble with things out of my control. So, I was going ready to go all in, flipping everything, and everything in the world was going to be flipped. And I had a good plan of mixing BYOD and because we had good solid Wi-Fi, or I thought I had good solid Wi-Fi, and then using the Chromebooks. And what happened with me was students started bringing in so many devices that it overloaded the access points in my building,
Yeah.
and so it got to the point where they had to shut down. They had to shut down the student Wi-Fi completely in order to slowly release more access to it, so that the devices that were district owned, like Chromebooks, could
Got
actually be in
access.
the network.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that right there threw a wrench in my plans, that I could still flip with paper, but
Right.
I still had to account for that access to technology, which just made it so much um,
It's
more
those
difficult.
days we fire up Kahoot and oh crap, there's no network.
Yeah, so I realized, yeah, I do love using my tech tools, but if you don't have that infrastructure, it does make it very difficult to do that,
Right.
to move in that
Right.
direction.
So let me flip directions here. What about Twitter? Why should people be using Twitter? How is it different than using Facebook and what people are used to sharing things with their friends? How is Twitter different for professional development?
Or you want to start, or should I jump in?
I'll go ahead and start. Twitter. I mean, Twitter. I'm sure what everybody said. It's you can. I mean, I only use mine for professional purposes, where I use Facebook
Hmm.
primarily for
Yeah.
you know social purposes, and that's just been my delineation to
Hmm.
help
Me
me.
too.
But I like be able to see headlines and deciding if I want to click on it or not in Twitter, and and then I search hashtags. I follow a lot of people, but I don't follow my mainstream. I just search hashtags, and that's me. Unless I'm really bored for some reason, I'm stuck in an airport or something, then I'll go through my main feed. But otherwise, it's search hashtags because it's much more focused on what I'm looking to learn about. My only concern about Twitter that I have is the positive part is you can only do 140 tweets. The negative part are the 140 characters. The negative part is a lot of people gain information and misconstrue things because
Right.
it's only 140 characters. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of concepts and buzzwords thrown out there that people grab onto a concept without understanding it because they got 140 characters and said, "Oh, that sounds great. I'm going to start repeating that or I'm going to start using it," but they don't
Right.
really understand what it is. They don't understand the person's intention behind it because it wasn't. So that's been a concern of mine, but I still use Twitter quite often. It's my first source for pretty much anything. It would be my news feed as well. If I want to find out about news, if
Hmm.
I hear somebody say, "Oh, did you hear what happened to that plane in somewhere?" I go to Twitter to find out because it's going to be the most up to date, and it's going to be from a variety of sources.
Mm-hmm.
So that's mainly why I use Twitter.
Twitter's actually taught me to be a better writer because I've had to consciously think about that 140 characters. Like, okay, how can I be concise? How can I be clear? And then also the ingenious bit of using acronyms and shortened text. Our capital S and lower S for students, and our capital P and lower S for parents, et cetera. That's taught me to really think about writing in just small, short bursts. I only use Twitter for professional. It's, I may tweet about swimming, but predominantly I'm tweeting about ed tech and just connecting with other people. I wouldn't be here talking to any of you if it wasn't for Twitter.
Right.
Really, that enabled the conversations to happen. I still go back to my first tweet, and one of the first people I talked to was Cheryl Morris, and and then another person in my district, MJ Fletcher, who's one of our tech guys, and he's a young adult lit author, and to this day I still talk to all of them, and through that network of being able to find everyone else, it's been so wonderful to have that conversation space on Twitter. Facebook I use for family. I use for more local sharing, whereas Twitter is global. To me, Twitter is global, and that's just a bigger audience. And like you said, I may not talk to every single person I follow, but I know that the conversation is always there. I can throw out a quick tweet and get a resource or get ideas, or find someone to talk to about a concept.
Yeah. And we've all met face to face, but there's a lot of people on Twitter that I converse with quite regularly that I have never met face to face. And I'll say to a teacher here, oh, I know that person. Or, I know this person who does this, and they say, well, how do you know this person? Well, I've connected with them on Twitter, and people who aren't on Twitter don't understand that you can make a connection with somebody on Twitter.
Right.
And it's just like 2 weeks ago, I ran into John Sowash in Florida, and he and I had never met face to face, but we communicated on Twitter for probably 3 or 4 years, and we just ran into each other, and we were kind of looking at each other like, have we ever met? And we both had to think about if we had we ever met face to face before, and we realized we had never met face to face before, but we knew each other quite well through Twitter. So.
What's funny is when we go to the conferences and stuff, you just tell me if you only tell me your first name, I don't really know who you are. You tell me your first and last name, I have a better clue. You tell me your first, last name, and your Twitter handle, I'll be like, oh, I know you. I follow you, which is
We need one request I have for FlipCon is that the Twitter handle is very bold and very visible on our the credentials that show up. Because actually, I met both of you before I arrived, and FlipCon was so much better for me because I knew all these people before I came to a conference of people I'd never ever met. The only person I'd met before was John because I saw him at a different event on our university campus. But I just showed up at the bar. It was late at night. There was Troy. We're having dinner and drinks and chatting, and then the next morning I ran into Kate in the cafeteria, and it was a blast. So I think Twitter's just so important for that reason. A lot of my friends say, I don't have time for Twitter, and my answer is I don't have time to not use Twitter.
Yeah.
Because very often I'll just send something, hey, guys, I'm looking for this, and 300 people will find it faster than I can.
And I respond to tweets faster than I do emails or anything else. I mean, somebody sends me a tweet, I get it on my phone, I just can reply really quickly. If somebody sends me an email, I'm like, do I really want to respond to that?
Well, my students have learned that.
I feel like I have to write more for an email, whereas Twitter, it's expected to be short. So, and speaking of being short, I'm short.
You're short on time. I was just going to say that.
I'm trying to get kids off buses, so.
I'm going to wrap this up. But yeah, we're going to be doing this session like every Thursday around this time. Whether Kate comes in or Troy comes in or someone else comes in, I want to offer these during the daytime as well as the Wednesday evening, which is about 8 p.m.-ish Central or 9 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Pacific. So we'll wrap this up for now and let you guys run off for kids and stuff, and I'll go have lunch.
Woo!
Thank you so much for connecting.
You're
If
welcome.
others want to connect in other weeks, let me know.
All right. Take care,
Have a
guys.
great day. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
I'll wrap this up here. All right, thank you.